Hi, I'm Faye and I'm your secret ballet coach. Today's class is a lower leg stretch routine. This sequence is primarily a lower leg stretch sequence. It will also get a little bit of your hamstrings and the back muscle chain in your leg, but it's primarily focused on your foot, ankle, and calf in the back of your leg. To begin, you're just going to take a block. This is like a narrow yoga block. You could use a full-size yoga block. You could also just use a stair in your house or your studio. You're gonna put that heel against the floor and then your toes up on the block. Now you wanna not be so back on your toes that you're in danger of sliding down. I recommend putting like the full ball of your foot up on the block just so that you can really put your body weight on it and you don't need to hold on in any way with your toes. You wanna make sure you have totally square hips so that they're both facing completely forward. You're gonna put that ball of your foot on the block, keeping your heel on the floor, and you're just going to rock your weight forward onto your foot and hold. So you wanna hold all of these stretches between 30 seconds to 2 minutes. They should be intense enough that you feel a stretch pretty strongly, but you don't want to feel like anything is going to tear. You don't want to feel like you're suddenly breaking into an intense sweat or that your body is flexing against the stretch. That usually means you've gone a little too far and you could ease off. So if you go forward and it's almost a sharp pain stretch, I would say just rock your weight a little bit further back, take a few deep breaths, and from there see if you can then move forward. The next stage of this stretch is going to be to actually walk forward with your other foot. Now my right side that I'm stretching now is very, very tight, so it's hard for me to do this walk forward, but your goal would be to walk completely forward, keeping your heel on the floor. Obviously, just go to where you can hold it and try to stay there, again, 30 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on the intensity of the stretch. From there, you're gonna take that foot back behind you. You can shake out that ankle. You're gonna place the ball of your foot back on the block, heel against the floor, and this time you're going to roll forward and try to touch the floor. Now, if you have really tight hamstrings, you may not be able to touch the floor. I recommend holding onto a handrail or the bar and placing your opposite hand against your front leg for support so you're not just dropping your body weight over and potentially overstretching the hamstring. You don't want it to be, again, so tight that you feel like you're going to tear it or pull it. That is not the goal and would accomplish the opposite of this stretch. So if you can, place your hands on the block or even flat against the floor and hold again for 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Really focus on having nice deep breathing as you stretch. You want to imagine and visualize that the muscle is loosening up or loosening off. As you hold the stretch, it can make a big difference in the speed of the progression in your stretching to actually visualize that it's working and helping rather than just holding and thinking about something completely different. From there, again, the next step would be to walk that other foot forward. Now, not all of you may be able to do this, and that's okay. It's pretty intense. Like I said, you can always hold onto the bar and you can just press your weight. You can bend that knee. You can even hold yourself up. All you're really doing with the walk forward is increasing the angle of the flexion in your ankle. So that angle gets a little bit sharper, and that's an important place to stretch. So that's why we do the walk forward, but again, you want to start and hold where you're at. You can always work up to the step forward later. Now, after you've held that, you're gonna roll yourself back up and we'll switch sides. So placing that left ball of your foot and just lean your body weight onto that ball of your foot and hold. So it's pretty normal for one side to be stronger and thus tighter. Sometimes your tighter side is your weaker side. The main thing that I would say is that you should pay attention to which is which, because it's good to be checking in with yourself and making sure that your muscle imbalances don't get too extreme. If you notice that one side is hugely tighter or hugely looser than the other side, that may point to an imbalance in your training or your strength training or your cross training or just the way you are dancing each day. where you may be relying on one leg more than the other for certain types of movements, and that imbalance over time can lead to injury. So it's always good to try to be as even as possible, but rather than beating yourself up about that, if you're not, just be paying attention so you're checking in with your legs often. From here, the next step is to walk forward, trying to keep that left hip square. Don't let it sink back if it's tight. Keep trying to square off that leg. And it might be really hard to walk forward. Just do what you can and hold. Taking nice deep breaths and trying to visualize the release. Sometimes when you have lots of tightness in your ankles or your calves, you'll notice a lot of clicking in your ankle bones, or when you plie at the first part of the bar, it's really stiff and you can't really get your knees to bend very far without your heels popping up. So if you're one of those people who has a lot of corrections along those lines, this is incredibly important for you to practice. Then you're going to come back to the starting position, ball of your foot on the block, and reach forward as far as you can. Remember, that might be halfway, that might be just to the edge of the block, and it might be palms on the floor. From there, you're just going to hold and breathe and try to let yourself sink down a little bit further. And when you feel like it's eased off a little bit, you're gonna try to take that step forward with your opposite foot. Again, you might have to come up a little higher. You might have to just hang on to the block, the edge of the bar. If you can, try to get all the way down to the floor. And hold, and check that your hips aren't rocking really far back. Your goal is to get your hips pretty far forward. It's gonna be a very intense stretch. You may not be able to get them very far forward. Just keep that in mind as you practice, that the goal is to try to get those hips farther forward. And then from there, rolling it all the way back up. And that is part one. All right, the next part is gonna be sat on the floor. So the next thing is sitting. So you're gonna sit down, bend both your knees in, lift one knee up, flex that foot, grab underneath your foot with your opposite hand. From there, you're going to extend your leg forward. Now, when you extend your leg forward, you want as much as possible to not sink and round in your back like this. Depending on how tight your hamstrings are, it may be very hard to get your back completely straight, but as much as possible, try to support yourself with that backhand and keep your back as long as possible. Now, from there, you're going to reach your hand around the outside and you're going to extend and sickle your foot while it's flexed. This is going to create a very intense stretch on the outside of your calf, which is a very common place for us dancers to get tight. So you're gonna extend that leg out, you're gonna wrap those fingers around the outside of your pinky toe and pull it towards the inside, sickling that foot as you extend it forward. Now you may even feel it all the way down the side in your IT band, depending on how tight that muscle chain is for you. From here, you're just gonna hold, take deep breaths, and imagine that it is becoming less tight as you hold. Good. Then you're gonna switch legs. Grab your opposite foot, opposite hand, extend it up and hold, flexing that foot and sickling to get that nice stretch down the side. Now when you sickle it, you wanna make sure you're not just twisting your ankle, right? What you're really trying to do is extend this whole side of your calf. So you want to keep your toes flexed. If you just sort of sink into your ankle, you won't feel it in your calf. You're just going to overstretch that ankle bone, which really won't accomplish anything. So keep those toes flexed up as you twist your foot. And hold. And try to keep your back nice and lifted. Good. From there, the next thing you're going to do is go onto the balls of your feet. you're going to press your knees down onto the floor and sit your body weight back towards your heels. Now, some people will feel this a lot and some people will only feel it a little bit. This is to stretch the underside of your toes. There's some very important muscles and tendons that go from inside of your big toe across your arch and through your Achilles tendon area. You want to try to keep your heels back over the balls of your feet and then put some weight down into those toes to stretch. Now, if this doesn't do a whole lot for you, that's okay. There's nothing wrong. Just make sure that your heels are really pressed back. It just might mean that that part of your foot is not as tight, which is not a bad thing. Next, from there, you're going to, I'll swivel around this way. From there, you're going to stretch your knees up and just reach forward, letting your body hang forward over your toes. You're going to pick up the toes on your left foot. Let's use the same arm. Place your hand underneath and so that your toes are reaching like the inside of your wrist. Use your opposite hand to stabilize you. You don't want to fall over. And you're going to flex up that left foot and then you're going to bend your elbow towards your shin as you stay forward. Now, the key to this is try not to shift your hips back to lessen the angle on your ankle. You want to stay really forward, right over your feet, and then lift those toes and just practice getting more flexion in that ankle. And this should feel pretty intensely in the back of your ankle and the center of your calf. And again, you're gonna hold and try to imagine that it eases off. And then switch after 30 seconds to 2 minutes and switch sides, lifting up those toes, toes touching the inside of your wrist, stabilizing with your opposite hand. Flex that foot up and try to bend that elbow towards your shin to increase the angle of the flexion in that ankle, and then hold and breathe. And let it go. Thank you so much for doing this with me today. I hope you found something helpful and got a good stretch in your calves, feet, and ankles. If you liked it, please don't forget to like and subscribe below. If you have any questions or requests, leave it in the comments, and as always, you can email me at secretballetcoach@gmail.com. Until next time, keep it on the QT.